Greetings from Home Meadow. I'm Emilio. I am a dual architecture landscape architecture student. I'm in my final year.
I'm Emma, and I'm in my final year of just the Masters of Landscape Architecture program.
So our project is titled Framing Restoration. And so this project aims to restore the native flora and fauna to Heron Meadow while creating opportunities for visitors of all ages to engage with and learn from the site. Interactive structures and natural sculptures invite guests to explore the new Vashon Nature Center and meadow restoration while being shown the importance of environmental stewardship. And the project expands on the supportive Vashon Center for the Arts community and uses art and gallery spaces as a catalyst to program the site.
So initially we were inspired by the old growth forest that used to exist on Vashon. We wanted to design a site that brought restoration to the forefront, a space where the Vashon community could come to watch the trees grow up. So expanding on that idea, our concept now aims to enhance the relationship of reciprocity between the VNC and the VCA by combining restoration and art. We do this by taking the formal galleries of the VCA outside and turning them into wild galleries, formed by native plantings. Built structures and other artworks made by local artists are intended to frame the ecological restoration of the site, challenging the binary notion of is it art or is it nature? In this way, the nature will highlight art and the art will highlight nature, creating a harmonious space for locals and tourists to come watch the trees grow up.
So our goals for the project on the left here were formed from our site explorations in person, online, as well as the Vashon Nature Center's long-term vision statement. And so we synthesized our ideas into kind of three topics of education, ecology, and stewardship. And in each of those bubbles are kind of our wishes and dreams for everything we'd like to include in the site, and that the synthesis of all that would be the new Heron Meadow. And for the guiding principles that kind of mesh with those goals in a more practical viewpoint, there's the issue of site access, which is really how you can get to the site from the just from where you park, and as well as how you can connect it to the Vashon Center for the Arts, and then wetland ecology, native plantings, and then framing the art. This is a simple site plan for those that aren't terribly familiar with the site. Heron Meadow on the right, with the VCA building on the left, and there's under the question mark is the large retaining wall that you've seen. And currently, the way you access the site is that top blue arrow. There's kind of a gravel walk that leads past the milk barn. It's not very inviting. It's hard to see. And so that's one of the areas that we've adjusted. So our proposed plan has a couple areas. At the north end of the site is the new visitor center, which reworks the entry. Then there's a retention pond made by a beaver dam analog. Moving down to the right along the east edge is the sculpture walk with sculpture rooms. Then moving back towards the VCA, there's a connection across the parking lot, and that gets to the kind of the large move, the more structural move on the site, which is this bridge. That bridge goes from the parking lot across the site over a swale and connects to the visitor center.
So before we dive into the details of the site, I'm just going to take a minute to talk about the overall planting scheme. So on the site, we've kind of broken it up into these three different habitat zones, and these are based on the existing ecology of the site. We really took into account the as-built plan that was given to us. And so we broke it up into meadow, forest, and wetland. And again, this is based on the as-built plan. And in the meadow, there are kind of two different types of meadow. There's the wildflower meadow, which in our plan you'll be able to see a little bit later on. It kind of frames the site, softening up the edges a bit. And the native grass meadow, inviting you to walk on it, inviting you to play in that open space. In the forest, there's a few different strips of plantings with more shrubs and trees, and they're filled with more western red cedars, a few cottonwoods, and the big kind of differences in the planting is that there's a lot of variation in the spring versus the winter plantings. So it's all together, but there's a lot of red flowering currant and willows mixed in with red osier dogwood and snowberries and other winter blooming white plants. And so it gives it a lot of different colors over the seasons. And then the wetland, I'll talk about the pond area in a little bit. And then along the eastern portion of the site right here, eastern portion of the site, there's a rather large swale. And so this is the planting palette that we've come up with. It's kind of a lot to take in, but it's kind of more meant for you to get a sense of the different colors and the seasonality. So in the spring, there's lots of wildflowers blooming, lots of really warm pinks, purples, and yellows. And then as you move into the colder, cooler months, lots of white winter blooming plants, along with the red osier dogwood that has like a very, very compelling, stark, linear red bark. And so you get that sense of like winter time when all the leaves fall, but there's still a significant amount of evergreen, dark green around.
So zooming into the northern part of the site, looking at first the visitor center and then over to the pond, we reworked how people arrive at the site. Currently, the entry is kind of on this gravel area where you could park your car and doubles as kind of the site access. And so we've moved that around to the back and created this covered work court area, which can double as some more parking, or if you need to get a tractor or a mower onto the site, you can come in this way. The main building has this circulation path that connects to the bridge and has a couple of nodes off it. So first is the visitor center, then there's this outdoor classroom, there's this council ring, which is a more inward facing node, and then the amphitheater with kind of an exciting hide and seek play area below it. In this section, you can see what we're imagining the visitor center to look like with the section, and then here's the bridge kind of taking off from the ground where you can walk under it. In this view, this axon shows kind of the flow and many of the different uses for the area around the visitor center. The outdoor classroom again. This is that hide and seek kind of play. There's could be these tubes that you could crawl through and run up and down. This idea is that there's kind of this more prescribed pathway of the bridge, and then there's this area where it's all you could run around. So if you were had a little bit more energy as a kid, you could run up and down the steps and crawl through the tubes. And you'll see that contrast between this side of the site and the other side of the site, between this prescribed path opposed to a more naturalistic kind of exploratory pathway. The building itself collects the rainwater from the roof and funnels it into this rain garden, which then overflows towards the Beaver Dam analog over here on the east side. And this is kind of a representation of the larger headwaters of the Judd watershed, and shows how the importance of being cognizant of where your water is coming from and where it's going.
All right, so now we're going to move to the northeastern portion of the site and talk about the retention pond. So the pond is fully intended not to be a pond for the whole year. It would only be a pond during the winter months. And if you've sat through 2 presentations before, then I think you've heard about the Beaver Dam analogs by now. And the fact that there is a culvert right here on the site. And so this portion of the site gets a significant amount of water as opposed to the rest of the site. So we are proposing just one Beaver Dam analog right here and moving the topography lines kind of more inward towards the site. So there would be a significant amount of cut here and then fill right here, kind of exaggerating that pond shape and therefore exaggerating this wetland ecotone in this area. And as you can see, you'd be able to walk up and get close to the wetland plants that would grow there and kind of experience the water. And this Beaver Dam analog, unlike the other ones, would be a little bit more reinforced and more of a permanent structure. And so you can see in this profile of the entire site, this runs north-south, that here is the dam, and this would be the water, a very, very full rate, and then the water would eventually overflow. It can overflow the dam, and then move into the swale, the retention plantings along the eastern portion of the site. These are all native plantings. And this is all restoration that already exists. And so here's a diagram showing how the water would move over that dam. There would be a lowered portion of it right here to kind of force the water to flow in this area and through that retention area. And so this is a little perspective of what the dam would look like. And this definitely represents more of a winter time, a very wet time that the dam would be overflowing into this retention swale. And kind of transitioning into the sculpture walk and the gallery rooms that we're also proposing. Here's a picture of the troll that a Danish designer makes kind of all over the place that we learned about this year. And he would be placed in the gallery rooms, and so you get that sense of discovery coming down this hill and around this corner. It's like, oh, you see this fun sculpture and you want to look for more. All right, so this is the gallery space that we're proposing. And so I'll get into that a little bit more right now. And you can see the sculpture walk goes down right alongside it in between the swale. And so what we had noticed was that the meadow is so big that we kind of wanted to break up the space a little bit. And so we decided to plant another strip of restoration right here and break it up a bit into these gallery rooms. And in the end, we kind of create these wild gallery spaces. And so you can see they exist in these areas. And then to make it more interesting, we added these transition zones of the wildflower meadow to give you that height transition into kind of a more dense vegetation area, as well as adding these kind of hidden pathways or secret gallery rooms. So there's always that sense of discovery and always something else around the corner. And so here's a section. I'll point out right here that the section cut runs right through the gallery space there. And here's a section cut of what the hidden pathway would look like. And again, these rooms are very seasonal too, going back to the planting. So there's always something blooming, always some color there. And these are just examples of some natural looking sculptures. This one is very near and dear to my heart. It's a precedent of a sculpture in Peru, and I was able to study abroad there. This little character does a lot of education, environmental education for the kids there.
Moving further along the sculpture walk, we come to the southwest corner of the site. In this area, there's a new connection across the parking lot, which connects via this existing walkway to the Vashon Highway. And in this zone, we're proposing removing some parking and creating kind of a raised crossing where cars can still go, but it allows, like, if you're walking on the parking lot, to really wonder what's going on over here and to kind of draw people from this area across the bridge. On the bridge, it rises up to this overlook right here that gives you a view back towards the bird mural here on the left, as well as views out towards the site and the gallery. Underneath the boardwalk or canopy walk, there's a stump crossing because the swale moves over here, and so in the winter it would be pretty wet, and so you could walk both on top or below the bridge. And to get down to the ground from here, you could use this proposed net play structure, which has this kind of spiral feature, and this is still very schematic design, but the idea that you could both go up higher and get a new frame or new view from the site, or get down to the ground and get views from both under and above the canopy. Here you can see the relationship from the visitor center on the nature center on the right, kind of rising up past the steps and the kind of play hide and seek area, and then rising up over the swale. The idea is that this would be kind of a wooden structure that tries to land lightly on the ground. Here's a rendering of that. It's rendered in white here, but because it hasn't been completely developed. But just kind of the idea of this boardwalk that moves through the site and being able to move up and down in this net structure, going up to the top and moving through. Here you can see kids, there's some mowed pathways, but you're able to really move around the site and play in the swale and get up and down and really explore the site at your leisure. So thank you.